They told me the rules were just superstition. But then, why is my name written on the next body tag? They told me the rules were just superstition, but I should have known better the night the body blinked. Yeah, I know how that sounds. I laughed too when I first heard it, sitting in the staff lounge at St. Luke's Hospital, sipping burnt coffee while the day shifters packed up and wished me good luck. It wasn't real luck they were offering, it was pity. No one wants the graveyard shift in the morgue, especially not in a building as old as this one. My name's Daniel, and for the last 3 months, I've been the night attendant, the one who checks the paperwork, logs incoming bodies, and makes sure the temperature stays below freezing. It's not glamorous, but it's quiet, or at least it's supposed to be. The first night I started, my supervisor, Carl, handed me a list. Just a few things to remember, he said with a smirk. The paper looked ancient, yellowed around the edges, the ink smudged by time or fingerprints. There were only 3 rules. Don't whistle after midnight. 2, don't answer if someone knocks. 3, never cover the mirrors. I laughed. He didn't. He just stared at me for a long, uncomfortable second before saying, "You'll understand." I figured it was just morgue humor, dark, creepy, and perfectly timed for a rookie. You know how people get when they work nights too long? They start making up ghost stories to keep themselves awake. So I pinned the list to the bulletin board above the sink and got back to work. That was the last normal night I had. There's something about a morgue at night that crawls under your skin. The hum of the refrigeration units, the faint flicker of overhead lights, the quiet that isn't really quiet, because you start to hear things that aren't there. A soft creak, a sigh, a shift in metal trays. You tell yourself it's just the pipes, or the wind, or gravity. You never think it could be something else. By 2:30 a.m., the hospital above was dead silent. No footsteps, no stretchers squeaking, no laughter from the nurses, just me and the sound of the ventilation fan rattling like a heartbeat. That's when I heard it. A knock. Soft, rhythmic. From the back door that leads to the freezer hallway. 3 knocks, slow and deliberate. I froze, pen still in my hand. My first instinct was to check. Someone probably forgot their key card, or maybe a doctor got lost. I started toward the door, but then I saw the list. Don't answer if someone knocks. For some reason, my chest tightened. It was stupid, right? A piece of paper with 3 dumb rules shouldn't make me nervous. But it did. I waited. Maybe it would stop. It didn't. 3 knocks again. Louder this time. I cleared my throat, tried to sound confident. Morgue's closed. You'll have to come back later. Silence. Then, faintly, a breath. Like someone standing right on the other side, exhaling against the steel. I backed away slowly, told myself it was the wind in the ventilation system. That's all. I didn't open the door. Not that night. By 3 a.m., I'd convinced myself to shake it off. I put on my headphones, played some old rock, and finished filling out the paperwork for a patient named Helena Morris. 67 years old, cardiac arrest. Nothing unusual, except she wasn't supposed to arrive until morning. Her name shouldn't have been on my list yet. I checked the drawers, just to be sure. Everything was where it should be. But when I turned back toward my workstation, something caught my eye. The mirror above the sink. It was fogged. That shouldn't happen in a room this cold. I wiped it with my sleeve, muttering to myself. Maybe my breath, maybe condensation. But as I cleared the glass, I noticed something else. A smudge of red across the bottom corner, like a fingertip dragged through dust, and right beside it, faint but unmistakable, letters. Don't forget the rules. I stepped back so fast I nearly slipped. My pulse hammered. The mirror was spotless a moment ago, I know it was. I tried to laugh it off again, tell myself someone was pranking me. Maybe Carl came down here earlier, trying to scare the rookie, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the air had changed. Heavier, warmer, watching. I sat back at my desk, eyes fixed on the mirror, when suddenly the faintest sound reached me. A low hum, like someone humming a tune through their teeth. I yanked my headphones off. The sound didn't stop. A melody. And then I realized it was whistling. Someone, somewhere inside the morgue, was whistling after midnight. You ever had every muscle in your body tighten all at once? That's what it felt like. The sound came from behind the freezer door, the one with the knocks earlier. Faint, steady, and completely wrong. I took one step toward it, then another. The metal handle gleamed under the flickering light. My breath fogged in front of me. I don't even know why I kept moving. I think part of me wanted to prove I wasn't scared, that this place hadn't gotten under my skin. I reached out. The whistling stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Then came a single gentle tap on the other side of the door. Not a knock this time, a tap, like someone pressing their finger against the steel. I turned around, ready to leave, ready to run, when I saw the reflection in the mirror again. My reflection. Except, no, the reflection wasn't moving the same way I was. I froze, raising my hand. The man in the mirror didn't. He just stared back at me, expression blank, mouth slightly open. And on the table behind him, behind me, I could swear a body bag shifted. The zipper moved half an inch, then the lights went out. For maybe 10 seconds, all I could hear was my own breathing and the distant hum of the freezers. When the power flickered back on, everything looked normal again. The mirror showed only me. The body bag was still. I laughed then, loud, forced, echoing off the cold tile. Told myself it was exhaustion, maybe a side effect of too much caffeine and too little sleep. But when I turned to leave, something new caught my eye, right above the list of rules pinned to the wall. A fourth line had been added, fresh ink, shaky handwriting. Never forget your own tag. I didn't write that. And there, on the desk beside me, lay a small, white tag with my name printed in neat black letters. Daniel Morris. I remember whispering, "That's not possible." But deep down, part of me already knew. The rules weren't superstition. They were warnings, and I'd already broken every one of them. The body didn't belong here. At least, that's what I kept telling myself, until I realized maybe nothing here ever belongs. I still remember the sound, the rubber wheels squeaking against the polished morgue floor, echoing through the empty hall like a countdown. No one pushed the gurney, no voices, just the slow, deliberate creak of metal gliding across tile, like it had a mind of its own. When I looked up, there it was, a body bag, plain white, unmarked, and heavier than it should have been. No paperwork, no time of death, no ID. Nothing. Just the quiet insistence of its presence, demanding attention, as though the morgue itself had conjured it out of the shadows. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering against my temples. I should have called security. I should have phoned someone, anyone, but I didn't. I wanted, no, I needed to see. I approached slowly, eyes locked on the bag, half expecting it to rise and walk away. The air smelled sharper here, like iron and bleach mixed together. But there was another scent, faint, almost familiar. My stomach churned. I knelt and began to unzip the bag. The face I saw made me step back before I even realized it. It wasn't just familiar, it was almost me. Not exactly, of course. but enough that I felt my stomach twist into knots. The cheekbones, the jawline, the slight curve of the nose. A photograph of me from 10 years ago flashed in my mind, one I'd tucked into a drawer and forgotten. Except this wasn't a photograph. This was alive once perhaps, and the eyes, God, the eyes, closed but somehow watching. I stumbled backward. My hand fell to the cold steel of the drawer handle. I told myself it's just a resemblance. That's all. You're tired. It's been a long night. But then a memory struck me, sharp and unbidden. A car accident, the report on the news last week. A sedan veering off the road, metal crunching, glass shattering. I had heard about it. I wasn't supposed to be involved, but a shadow of recollection flickered at the edge of my mind. My name whispered alongside someone else's. A scream, the smell of burning rubber, my hands shaking as I leaned over a stretcher. I shook my head violently. No, that wasn't possible. That couldn't be me, could it? A sound made me spin around, soft but deliberate, a shuffle of shoes on tile. The faint rustle of a lab coat. Daniel, a voice said. Smooth, cold, detached, almost melodic. I froze. A man, or maybe a shadow of a man, stood at the edge of the room. Lab coat pristine, face obscured by the flickering light above. He didn't approach, didn't speak again. He just watched. You shouldn't be down here anymore, he said, almost as a warning, almost as a statement of fact. I opened my mouth, but my voice caught in my throat. I'm just doing my job, I stammered. His head tilted slightly, like he knew more than I did. Then he stepped back. The light flickered. The sound of the gurney wheels squeaking grew louder for a moment, then vanished. When I looked back at the body, the bag was still there, but my rational mind began to doubt everything. Had I imagined the figure? The voice? Or was it a part of me? I forced myself to focus. Paperwork, logs, identification, anything to ground myself in reality, but nothing made sense. The entry log was blank. Time of death, empty. The hospital's internal system didn't even register the arrival. It was like the body had just appeared, and yet I could swear I had seen those eyes before. I knelt again, hand trembling, and touched the zipper. A shiver ran through me, cold and deep. I counted silently in my head, trying to steady my breathing. 1, 2, 3, and I pulled. Nothing. The bag was gone. The cold metal drawer where the body had rested seconds ago was empty. I blinked, heart hammering. Sure, I must have imagined the entire thing. I crouched lower, peering into the drawer. Still empty. Where? I whispered, voice breaking. A soft tap echoed from behind me. I turned. Nothing. Just the fluorescent lights flickering, humming. The shadows stretched and twisted along the walls like they were alive. I could feel it then, a creeping sense of wrongness, of being watched, not by someone outside, but from somewhere inside the walls, inside the cold, inside my own mind. My hands shook as I reached for the intercom, hoping to call someone, anyone. The line was dead, no dial tone, no static, just silence. The reflection in the mirror caught my attention, another flicker of movement, not quite aligned with my own. My mouth opened. No sound came out. The lights flickered again, and I swear I saw that same face from the bag, smiling faintly behind me. I spun around, empty. Then the whisper, barely audible. Daniel! I froze. I didn't respond. I didn't move. My heart was so loud in my ears I thought it might explode. The body, my body, or someone who looked like me, was gone. And yet the sense of presence lingered, heavy, oppressive, like the morgue itself had taken a breath and was holding it, waiting for me to break. And I knew deep down that this was only the beginning, because the morgue had rules, and I had already broken them all. I shouldn't be down here. I know that now, and yet I can't leave. Every time I try, something pulls me back, whispering my name through the walls. It started subtly. The hum of the refrigeration units, the same sound that usually comforted me, became wrong. Not just louder, but layered. A low undertone, like whispers buried beneath the machinery. I paused, hand hovering over the clipboard, listening. At first, I thought it was fatigue. 3 nights in a row without proper sleep will do strange things to your mind. You start hearing voices in the hum of an air vent. You see shadows stretch farther than the light allows. You imagine movement where there is none. I told myself that. I really did. But that didn't stop the whisper from growing, repeating, shaping itself into words. Daniel. The first time I heard it clearly, I spun around, flashlight slicing through the dim morgue, but the freezer aisles were empty. My reflection in the mirrors was fine. Nothing shifted. Nothing. And yet I felt eyes on me, always on me, watching, waiting. I tried to convince myself it was the stress of the job, but then the notes started appearing. At first, small things. Scribbles on the margins of my paperwork. Then on the mirror, then, horrifyingly, written on the walls, where no pen had ever been. The letters were unmistakable. My handwriting, trembling, sharp, uneven, but undeniably mine. You broke all 3. I know what you're thinking. It's impossible. I thought that too. But if you'd seen what I saw, what I knew, you'd understand. I began recording myself, thinking if I captured it on camera, I could prove I wasn't losing my mind. But the footage didn't make sense. In some frames, the shadows moved against the flow of light. In others, the mirrors reflected things that weren't there. My own hands appeared twisted, contorted, as if the reflection wasn't me at all. The whispers grew louder over the next few nights, turning into partial sentences, incomplete phrases that clawed at my sanity. She's waiting. You can't leave. The rules, broken, and then came the knocking. Again, not from the doors this time, from the freezer drawers. Tap, 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 slow, deliberate. I swear I could feel the vibration through the soles of my shoes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But something, some invisible tether, kept me rooted to the spot. I felt guilt and fear coiling together, tight as steel around my chest. It was during one of these moments that I noticed it. The newest note, fresh ink, still wet in a way that defied logic, taped to the wall above the largest freezer. I held my breath as I read, "Do not open, do not open." My mind argued with itself. Of course I'll open it. I need to know. I need to see. And I did. I lifted the heavy drawer. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the handle. Inside, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just cold metal and silence. I leaned in closer, and then I heard it. The faintest shuffle, soft, like someone shifting beneath the steel. A whisper, "Daniel." I bolted backward. The drawer slammed shut behind me on its own. I swear to God, I didn't touch it. I stumbled toward the mirror to check my reflection. That's when I saw her. Not a ghost, not a shadow. A figure. Silhouette pressed against the glass, faintly blurred. Hair long, wet, hanging in front of her face. And though her features were obscured, I recognized her. I did. My chest seized as the memory hit me in pieces. She was the one. The patient. The one I was supposed to save. The accident, my hands, her name. It had been my fault. All of it, Helena, I whispered. The word felt like it tore itself out of my throat. She didn't respond, just stared. Her presence, though silent, weighed on me like iron chains. I turned, flashlight swinging, but she was gone. Only the whisper remained. The rules. You will pay. By now I was certain I was not alone, and I was never meant to be. I started talking to the camera. My confession, my apologies, my fears. I told myself it would help, recording every twitch, every stammer, every tremor. But even then, I couldn't trust what I was seeing or hearing. I admitted things I wasn't sure I'd done, accusations I couldn't prove, memories that may or may not have belonged to me. Because the morgue changes you. It rearranges your mind like the drawers rearrange the bodies. And if you look too closely, you realize you might already be one of them. By the third hour of that night, the whispers became voices. Distinct. They argued, complained, threatened, and somewhere beneath the cold, deeper than the freezers themselves, I heard movement. Soft, dragging, deliberate. I ran to the largest drawer again, compulsively, my heart hammering in my ears, pulled the handle, empty, and then I heard the voice again, not whispering, not calling, but right in my ear, impossibly close, impossibly real. Daniel, you shouldn't have come back. I spun, flashlight slicing through darkness, shadows twisting like fingers. No one. Nothing. I sank to the floor, pressed my back against the steel wall, breathing shallow, my pulse deafening, my reflection in the mirror gone. For the first time I realized that perhaps I wasn't even supposed to be here. Not alive, not dead, not anything recognizable. And that's when the hum changed. A new tone, lower, resonating in the bone. The morgue itself seemed to breathe around me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Somewhere beneath the cold, I felt her presence shift. A drawer slammed somewhere down the hall. The whispering stopped. Silence, and then a soft, deliberate knock. 3 taps. I froze. My hand hovered over the flashlight. My mind screamed to run. My heart betrayed me because I knew. I had to open it. They told me I couldn't leave, that the rules weren't superstition, that I would pay, but I never thought it would be like this. Trapped. Watching myself rot while I still breathe, or think I breathe. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. The morgue wasn't just a room. It wasn't just a building. It was a cage, a mirror world where the dead and the living merged. And the rules were never suggestions. They were chains. I knew I shouldn't have come back that night. I knew the whispers, the notes, the shadows. They weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to warn me. But the pull was irresistible. Something someone wanted me to see, to witness. The freezer aisles stretched farther than they should have, twisting in angles that didn't exist before. The hum of the refrigeration units vibrated through my chest, through my bones, like the heartbeat of the building itself. And in every mirror, every reflective surface, I saw faces. Not just hers, Helena, but others whose names I never knew. Eyes empty, staring at me, accusing me. I stumbled to the largest drawer, the one I had opened so many times now. My hands shook uncontrollably. I didn't want to know what was inside, but I had to. I pulled. Nothing. Cold metal. Silence. And then, slowly, the air in front of me shifted, like fog rolling in from nowhere. My reflection shimmered in the mirrored wall, but it wasn't right. My face, my expression, it was twisted, almost smiling, and on the steel slab behind me, the outline of a body bag slowly settled, even though I hadn't moved it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. My legs wouldn't move. My voice wouldn't come. And then I saw the tag. White. Neat. Black letters. Daniel Marissi froze. My pulse stopped. My stomach lurched. I didn't remember putting it there. I couldn't have. But the handwriting was mine. Mine. I pressed my trembling fingers to the tag, and it burned like ice. The whisper returned, closer this time. Not from the drawers, not from the walls, but from inside me. It's time. The freezer door creaked open by itself. I didn't touch it, couldn't. Something invisible pushed me toward it. And there she was. Not alive, not exactly dead. Helena, her eyes locked on mine. Her hand reached out, slow, deliberate. And I knew in that moment that she wasn't asking me to save her. She was asking me to join her. Everything fragmented. Memories, whispers, reflections. The car accident, the crash, I had been there. I had caused it. I had tried to save her, failed, covered it up. And now the morgue was punishing me, bending reality around me, forcing me to live every detail over and over, replaying it like a film where I was both the audience and the victim. I fell to the floor, pressing my hands to my ears, trying to block out the voices, the hum, the whispers, but it didn't stop. I couldn't escape. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, silence. I lifted my head. The mirrors reflected nothing but me. The freezer drawers were still. The hum of the refrigeration units returned to normal. My pulse thundered in my ears. I wanted to believe it was over. I wanted to convince myself I was awake, alive, still human. But then I saw it. My reflection in the mirror didn't move when I moved. It smiled, slowly, deliberately, and behind me, the outline of a body, perfectly still, zipped inside a white bag. I staggered back, heart pounding. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. I turned, flashlight shaking in my hands. The tag was there. Daniel Morris, I screamed. My voice echoed against the cold tile. Nothing, just me, and the cold. I realized then that the morgue didn't just punish. It trapped. It fed on guilt, on denial, on the fragile barrier between living and dead. I wasn't leaving, not ever. The shadows moved around me, pulling, twisting. The whispers returned, layering into a chorus of voices, hers, mine, others I could never name. You belong here. The rules were never yours to break. Welcome back, Daniel. I collapsed to the floor, clutching the tag to my chest. My own voice, my real voice, sounded distant, hollow. The camera I'd left recording on the desk caught glimpses of movement behind me that I didn't see with my eyes. My own hands reached out, touching nothing, and I understood. I wasn't just a witness. I was part of the morgue now, part of its endless looping night shift, part of the rule I had broken, paying the ultimate price in a punishment I could never escape. The freezer drawers rattled softly, a lullaby. The lights flickered. I reached out again. My reflection in the mirror shifted once more. Not me, something older, something patient, something that had been waiting for this moment. And then, as I felt myself dissolving into the hum, into the cold, into the whispers, the tag, white, black letters, my name, Daniel Morris. I screamed, but there was no sound, no movement, just the cold, the shadows, the endless repetition, and I realized the shift never ends. Somewhere outside the morgue, another name would appear on the next body tag. Another night attendant would arrive, curious, arrogant, unafraid, and the cycle would begin again, because the rules weren't superstition, they were eternal, and I had already broken them all. Story number 2. They told me the desert never changes. That's why I took the job. But lately, the sand moves at night. The stars flicker like dying bulbs. And the customers, they don't look right anymore. I shouldn't even be. Talking about this, you'll think I'm lying, but maybe that's better than the truth. I didn't believe in rules until I broke. That's how this all started. One stupid night, one stupid cup of coffee poured 30 minutes too late. I'm not supposed to be recording this. Marla would have killed me if she knew I was talking about the diner online. But she's not here anymore. And somebody needs to understand why the place feels different now. Why I can't sleep when the sun comes up. The Dusty Spoon Diner sits off Highway 19, a strip of cracked asphalt running through nothing but sand and silence. You'd miss it if not for the flickering neon sign that buzzes louder than the flies inside. I've been working the graveyard shift for 6 months. The pay's awful, the coffee's worse, and the quiet used to be comforting. Used to be. Marla, my boss, always said the diner had rules. She never explained where they came from. They were just written on a yellowed notepad taped behind the counter. Keep the lights on. 2. Don't serve coffee after 3:13 a.m. 3. Don't look the customers in the eye for too long. I used to think she made them up to mess with me. She had that kind of humour. Dry, mean, a little superstitious. She'd grin when the wind howled outside and say, "The desert doesn't like attention." I'd roll my eyes and keep wiping down the counter. You have to understand something. When you work nights out here, the silence gets inside you. The hum of the fridge becomes a rhythm. The ticking clock becomes a heartbeat. After a while, it's hard to tell what's real and what's just the sound of your own brain echoing. That night, it was quiet. Too quiet. The jukebox in the corner, dead since I started, sat like a coffin full of old music. The clock read 2:57. I was half asleep, leaning against the counter, when the bell above the door jingled. I hadn't seen headlights, no engine, just the sound of the bell. A man walked in. At least I think it was a man. He was tall and covered in dust, like he'd walked through a sandstorm. His face was pale, features half buried beneath layers of dirt. His clothes looked decades old. Faded denim, a torn jacket, boots with dried mud that didn't belong to this desert. He sat in booth 3, the one under the buzzing light that flickered like it was breathing. "Coffee?" I asked. My voice came out rough, like the air was too dry to carry sound. He nodded once. Slow. His eyes were grey, not the colour of a storm, but the colour of ashes. As I poured, he spoke. "Do the rules still apply?" That's what he said. Just like that. And I laughed, because what else do you do when a stranger walks out of the night and asks something like that? "Yeah," I told him, smiling. "Rules are rules." He didn't smile back. He just stared, not at me exactly, but through me. I felt cold, like someone had opened a door behind my ribs. The jukebox gave a soft click. Then, music. I dropped the coffee pot. It shattered across the floor, because the jukebox hadn't worked in years. Marla said it was fried from a lightning strike long before I started. But it was playing now, a slow, warped version of Blue Moon. The record dragged, stretching every word like a ghost learning to sing. The stranger tilted his head, listening. "She liked this one," he murmured. I asked who he meant, but he didn't answer, just kept staring out the window, though there was nothing to see but his reflection and the endless dark. When I looked back down to sweep the broken glass, the booth was empty. No sound, no footprints, no smell of coffee. Gone. I told myself maybe I dozed off. Maybe I dreamed it. That's what you have to do out here. Rationalize. The desert plays tricks on your head. I cleaned up the mess, checked the time. 3:12 a.m. 1 minute before the rule. I thought about pouring another cup, just to prove to myself that none of it mattered, that the rules were a joke. But something about the air changed. The hum of the lights deepened, almost like a growl beneath the wiring. The front door rattled. Once, then again. 2 sharp knocks. I froze. I don't know why, but I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I waited, every hair on my arm standing up. The door didn't open. The bell didn't ring, just 2 knocks, echoing through the empty diner. When I finally looked out the window, I swear the desert looked closer, like the dunes had crept up overnight, swallowing the road. But that's impossible, right? I grabbed my phone, thinking I'd call Marla, tell her some weirdo was playing games. But my screen was black, not dead, not frozen, just black, like the phone refused to turn on. When I looked up, the jukebox had stopped. The diner was completely silent. Even the lights seemed to hold their breath. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so close it brushed the back of my neck. "You shouldn't have laughed." I spun around, but no one was there. Only the smell of burnt coffee and something faintly metallic, like blood on a spoon. I told myself it was the pipes, the wiring, the wind, anything but what it sounded like. I finished my shift in silence, staring at the clock until dawn bled across the horizon. When Marla came in, she looked at me and frowned. "You broke a rule," she said softly, touching the edge of the counter. "You never laugh at them." I wanted to ask who them was, but she was already walking to the back, flipping through that old notepad of rules. I could have sworn there were only 3. Now there were 4. "Don't speak to the ones who remember." I told myself it was her handwriting. Maybe she'd added it after what happened. But the ink was old, faded, like it had been there all along. And that night when I clocked in again, the jukebox was waiting, silent, like it knew I'd be back. I didn't add that rule. I swear to God, it was already there. That's what I told Marla when I came in the next night. But she didn't even look up from the counter, just circled the word "remember" with her pen like she was grading it. I'd barely slept since the last shift. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear that whisper again, the one that told me I shouldn't have laughed. It felt like someone leaning close, breath hot on my neck. I kept telling myself it was a dream, some late-night hallucination. But dreams don't change ink on a notepad. When I clocked in, the board looked different. The old yellow paper was gone. In its place was a fresh whiteboard, wiped clean except for 2 new lines written in crooked, shaky handwriting. No reflections. 5. Don't answer if someone knocks twice. I stood there staring at it, trying to convince myself it was some kind of joke. Marla was behind the counter, wiping mugs that didn't need cleaning. "When did these go up?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just kept scrubbing the same mug over and over until it squeaked. Finally, she said, "Corporate sent them. New policy." I almost laughed, but something in her tone stopped me. "Corporate? We don't even have a website, Marla." She looked up. Her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept either. "Just follow the rules, Eli. You already broke one." That shut me up. The rest of the night crawled. The lights hummed louder than usual, flickering just enough to make me dizzy. Around 1 a.m., I caught my reflection in the coffee pot. Pale, eyes too wide, hair plastered to my forehead with sweat. I remember leaning closer, thinking, God, I look like hell. Then my reflection blinked. Not like a trick of the light. Not at the same time as me. It blinked first. I stepped back so fast I nearly slipped on the tile. My heart was pounding, but I told myself it was exhaustion. You stare into shiny metal long enough, your brain starts to play games, right? Marla was at the register, pretending not to notice me. "You okay?" she asked, voice flat. "Yeah, fine." I wasn't fine. I kept catching the reflection move when I wasn't. A twitch of the lip, a flicker of the eye, like something was pretending to be me and getting the rhythm wrong. By 2:45, the diner felt heavier somehow. Air thick like it was holding its breath. I wiped down booth 3, the same booth that Pale Stranger had sat in. The seat was cold, even though the air was warm. I don't know why I touched it, I just wanted to feel something normal. Then the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in, tall, broad shoulders, trucker hat, plaid shirt. He looked normal enough. Human. "Coffee," he said, sliding into booth 3. I hesitated, glancing at the clock. 2:59 still safe. As I poured, he smiled. "You don't remember me, do you?" I laughed nervously. "Can't say I do. You're new around here." He shook his head. "Nah, been here before. Same booth, same song on the jukebox." I froze. The jukebox hadn't played since last night. "What song?" I asked. He grinned wider. "Blue Moon." The pot shook in my hand, coffee spilling over his cup. "That's not possible," I said before I could stop myself. He leaned forward. "Funny thing is, it was exactly a year ago, same date. You poured my coffee at 3:12, right before the lights went out. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. He chuckled, low and dry. "You told me the rules don't matter. Remember what happened after?" I tried to speak, but my throat was tight. He kept smiling, but his eyes, they weren't right. They were too bright, reflecting the flickering light like wet glass. Marla came out from the back then, and for a second I felt relief. But when she saw the man, she froze. Her face went pale, like all the air had been sucked out of her lungs. She whispered, "You shouldn't be here." The trucker tilted his head. I never left. Then the jukebox clicked. The same warped tune began to play, dragging, slow, wrong. Blue Moon. The lights flickered hard enough to sting my eyes. I swear for half a second, everyone in the diner, me, Marla the trucker, all had the same face, mine, and then it stopped. The song, the humming, the lights, silence. When my vision cleared, the trucker was gone. Marla was standing behind the counter, staring at something in her hands, her own apron. She folded it once, neatly, placed it on the stool and said, "You'll handle the rest of the shift, won't you?" Before I could answer, she walked into the back room and closed the door. That door never opened again. I must have stood there for an hour, maybe more. I told myself she'd just gone out back for a smoke, that she'd left early, but her keys were still hanging on the hook. Her jacket was on the chair. The only thing missing was her shadow. I didn't panic. I mean, yeah, I yelled her name once, maybe twice, but that's not the same as panicking. I definitely didn't scream. It's just, the sound that came out didn't feel like mine. When the sun finally came up, I went to check the whiteboard. The rules were still there, all 5 of them, except the handwriting was worse now, slanted and uneven, like someone had written them in a hurry. And under number 5, there was something new, a 6th rule, fresh, wet ink, 6. Don't work the shift alone. The marker was still uncapped, resting at the bottom of the board. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. I thought about wiping the rule off, pretending it wasn't there. But the ink didn't smear. It sank into the surface, like the words were carved into it. That's when I realized there wasn't going to be a next shift. But when the clock hit midnight, the bell above the door jingled anyway. And I knew, whatever had come for Marla, it wasn't finished yet. You ever clean something so many times the stain just comes back darker? That's what it's like here now. No matter how much I scrub, the floor still smells like burnt coffee and something sweeter underneath. Something that sticks to my hands even after I wash them. I don't know how long it's been since Marla disappeared. A week? A month? Time doesn't work right anymore. The clock behind the counter keeps jumping, skipping minutes, sometimes hours. Last night it went from 1:13 straight to 3:12. Then it just stopped. Right before the jukebox clicked on again, the diner feels heavier every shift. The air buzzes and the light from the neon sign outside seeps through the windows like blood through gauze. The new rule, don't work the shift alone, keeps replaying in my head. But I am alone. There's no one left to cover the register, no one to laugh about the weird customers. Just me, the hum of the lights and the sound of the desert pressing against the glass. At least I think I'm alone. Sometimes I hear someone humming from the kitchen, low, tuneless, like a song half remembered. When I check, the sound stops. Once, I found a wet handprint on the freezer door, smaller than mine, like a child's. I wiped it away, but it came back an hour later. I tell myself it's the pipes, the cold, the dust. But dust doesn't hum. I've started filming my shifts. Not for attention, not for views. Just proof that I'm not losing it. But every morning when I check the footage, the files are corrupted. Static, distortion, and frames of me staring into the lens like I'm waiting for something. Sometimes I'm smiling, though I don't remember smiling. The first night I watched one of those clips, I nearly dropped my phone, because behind me, in the reflection of the diner window, there was movement. Someone wiping a table, someone wearing Marla's apron. But I swear, no one was there. Now I keep the closed for cleaning sign on the door, even when it's open. It feels safer that way, like I'm admitting to the diner itself that I'm not ready for customers, that I just need to clean up before I can serve again. But they still come. Last night, a woman walked in around 2:30. Blonde hair, sunglasses, even though it was pitch black outside. She sat in booth 3. Of course she did. Everyone does. Kitchen's closed, I told her. She smiled. Her teeth were too white, too even. That's okay, she said softly. I'm not hungry. I turned away to grab the coffee pot. Reflex. Habit. When I looked back, she was gone. No sound, no door, no shadow. Just the smell of perfume. Lilac and something rotten underneath. I told myself I didn't panic. I told myself I was calm. But then I noticed the mug on the table, half full. Steam still rising. I remember pouring it. I remember her hand touching mine. But I don't remember her face anymore. That's the part that scares me most. How the memories fade, like they're being cleaned out too. Wiped away one shift at a time. Tonight, the floor's sticky again. The tiles near booth 3, darker than the rest. I scrub them until my hands ache, but the stain won't lift. It smells like iron and old smoke. When the bleach runs low, I switch to hot water. Steam curls around my wrists like fingers. And then I hear the bell above the door. I don't look up. Not right away. I just say, "We're closed for cleaning," a voice answers. I know. I used to say that too. My blood went cold. It was a man's voice. Low, tired, familiar. I turned around. The trucker, the same one from before. Same hat, same jacket, same smirk. Only wrong. His skin was grey around the edges, like it was trying to remember what colour looked like. "You shouldn't be here," I said, echoing what Marla told him. He laughed softly. "You keep saying that. Every year." "What do you mean, every year?" He just looked at me. "You don't remember, do you?" Of course I remember." But my voice cracked and I hated how small it sounded. He leaned against the counter. "You told me once that you liked this job. Said it felt peaceful out here. Said you liked being alone." I shook my head. "You're not real." "Maybe not." He pointed toward the rule board. "But those are..." I turned to look, and the board was different again. The writing thicker now, the marker strokes digging into the surface. The first 3 rules were smeared, unreadable. Only the new ones were clear. No reflections. 5. Don't answer if someone knocks twice. 6. Don't work the shift alone. 7. Don't clean what's already clean. My hands were shaking. "You did this," he smiled. No, you did. And then he was gone. I mean it. One blink and he vanished. The air still held the smell of diesel and sweat, but the space where he stood was empty. That's when I noticed the mop bucket, full of red water. I told myself it was rust. It had to be rust. The pipes are old. The water's bad. It happens all the time. But when I looked closer, I saw the reflection. Not mine. Hers, Marla. She was behind me in the water, smiling. That same dry, crooked grin. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes did. They blinked once, then rolled upward, like she was sinking. I kicked the bucket over. The water spilled across the floor, spreading toward booth 3. The lights flickered, buzzing like a swarm of insects. I didn't scream, I didn't. But I did run. I made it to the door, hand on the knob, and froze. 2 knocks. Sharp, measured, I backed away. The bell didn't ring. The sound didn't stop. 2 knocks. Pause. 2 more. I grabbed the closed for cleaning sign and flipped it over. The back wasn't blank anymore. Someone had scrawled 3 words in wet, dripping ink. You missed a spot. The lights went out, and from the dark, the jukebox started to hum. If you're watching this, don't stop at the Dusty Spoon Diner. I'm serious. Keep driving, even if you're hungry, even if you see the neon sign flickering like it's calling your name. Because once you step inside, you're not a customer anymore. You're part of the shift. I started this recording an hour ago, or maybe yesterday. Time's wrong here. It folds over itself like melted plastic. I keep trying to check the clock, but the hands move backward. The jukebox hums low, just enough to fill the silence. It's been playing the same 4 notes of Blue Moon on a loop for what feels like forever. I'm sitting in booth 3 now. I used to clean it, remember? Scrubbed it until my knuckles bled. Now the table's spotless, too spotless. The kind of clean that looks replaced. The kind that looks hungry. The lights keep flickering, and I swear I see faces in the bulbs. People I used to serve. The trucker, the woman with the sunglasses, even Marla. They're trapped in the glass, mouths moving soundlessly, begging me to listen. But I can't. Because if I listen, I'll start hearing them whisper again. And if I hear them, I'll remember what I did. I keep telling myself I didn't hurt anyone. I just followed the rules. You have to follow the rules here. That's what keeps the diner calm. That's what Marla always said. But the rules keep changing. I looked at the board earlier. The white surface is gone. It's just the wall now. The words burned into the paint like scars. The numbers go past 7. 8, 9, 10. Some of them are crossed out. Some written over each other like they're fighting to be remembered. The last one's smeared, but I can still make it out. 10. Feed the hungry. I don't know what that means. I mean, I think I know, but I don't want to say it out loud. When the lights flicker, the diner changes. The tables shift places. The windows show sandstorms that never touch the glass. And sometimes I see silhouettes outside. Shapes moving across the dunes. They knock twice, always twice. I used to ignore them. I followed the rule. But tonight I think I'm supposed to let them in. The sign outside still glows open all night. I didn't turn it on. It just started. When the bell jingled a few minutes ago, I thought maybe it was a hallucination. But no, someone came in, a man. Pale, dust-covered. The same one from the first night. He sat in booth 3, right across from me. No sound when he moved. Just the soft scrape of his chair. "You've been doing well," he said. His voice was calm, low, patient. The kind of voice that makes you want to confess things you didn't even do. I told him I wanted to leave, that I was done, that I wasn't staying for another shift. He smiled. "You're not staying," he said. You're becoming. I didn't understand what he meant until I looked down. My hands were grey around the edges, like dust had seeped into my skin. When I rubbed my palms together, tiny grains flaked off. Stop, I said. Please stop. He tilted his head. You broke too many rules. Now you make them. The lights flickered again. For a moment, I saw the diner full. Every booth, every stool, every shadow occupied by something that used to be someone. They were all looking at me, and in their eyes, I saw it. The same fear I'd been carrying for weeks. That's when I realized I wasn't just cleaning up after the diner. I'd been feeding it all those stains I scrubbed. The ones that came back darker. The ones that never dried. They weren't dirt or rust. They were leftovers. I don't remember doing it. But sometimes remembering isn't the point. Sometimes forgetting is the rule. The man across from me leaned forward. They're coming back soon, he said. You'll need to serve them. Serve who? I asked. He smiled wider. Everyone who watches. I didn't get it then, but I do now. This video, this recording, it's not for me. It's for you. The diner's hungry again. The customers are changing. And every person who listens, every person who watches, keeps it alive a little longer. That's the real rule. The one nobody writes down. The diner feeds on attention. It doesn't need food. It needs eyes. It needs stories. It needs you to believe it's real, even for just a second, because that's how it finds new customers. That's how it stays open. I can feel it now, under my skin. The hum of the lights, the pull of the desert, the warmth of the coffee pot that never runs out. I'm not afraid anymore. I walk to the counter. My reflection in the coffee pot smiles. This time, perfectly in sync. The jukebox hums louder, steady, confident. Blue Moon sounds almost new again. The neon sign outside flickers once, twice, then steadies. The word open glows bright red. I hang a fresh apron on the hook. It's warm, still warm, like someone just folded it for me. The name tag stitched into the front isn't mine. It says Marla. For a second, I swear I see her standing behind the counter, grinning that dry grin. Then she fades, and I'm the only one left. The bell above the door jingles. I don't even look up when the first customer walks in. I just smile. Welcome to the Dusty Spoon Diner, I say. Take any seat you like. They hesitate, glancing at the sign. It reads closed for cleaning. I flip it over. The back glows faintly under the neon light. We're open all night. The door closes. The bell stops ringing. And from somewhere deep in the walls, the whisper comes again. Closer now. Clearer. Familiar. You're doing great. Eli, keep serving. The lights hum. The desert shifts, and the camera flickers out. Only my voice remains. If you ever drive down Highway 19, don't stop for coffee. Static. Then the jukebox plays one last perfect note. Blue Moon. I know what you've heard about that night. The kids, the pumpkins, the blood. But here's the thing nobody ever mentions. I wasn't supposed to be there. And yet, one of the carved faces looked exactly like mine. I swear to you, the pumpkins were smiling before anyone carved them. That's what no one ever believes. I probably shouldn't even be talking about this. Not after what happened the last time someone tried. But every Halloween, when the air smells like wet hay and wood smoke, I start hearing it again. That hollow sound, like something breathing through a slit of rotted rind. So, if I don't say it now, I never will. I went back to Hollow's End 3 nights ago. First time in 12 years. They've still got that sign on the highway. Welcome home, Harvest Strong. Half the bulbs dead, the rest flickering like Morse code. The same cracked gas station. Same church with the leaning steeple. Nothing changes there. Not really. Everyone thinks I left because of what happened in the field. The papers called it the Halloween Massacre. They said a group of teenagers went out drinking, carved pumpkins, and never came back. That part's true. What they never figured out was who brought the pumpkins in the first place. They said it was some prank gone wrong. Kids with too much beer and not enough sense. But that's not what I remember. I remember faces, not people. Not exactly. Faces on the pumpkins, already there when we found them. Dozens of them, sitting in the moonlight, carved too cleanly, too deep. The edges didn't look cut. They looked grown. But, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. When I pulled into town this week, the sky was orange, low, heavy. The radio kept cutting out, repeating the same lyric, come home, until I shut it off. I told myself it was nostalgia, the kind that twists every shadow into something familiar. But when I saw the field again, I realized how wrong I'd been to think it was over. It's on the edge of town, past the mill. You can smell it before you see it. That mix of damp soil and something sweet, almost metallic. The locals stopped planting anything there after the massacre. They fenced it off, called it cursed, but the pumpkins still grow, wild and fat, without anyone tending them. I parked by the ditch and climbed over. The soil felt soft under my boots, almost like it remembered me. I know that sounds crazy, but you'd understand if you'd ever been there. The air hums, not like bugs, deeper, slower, like the whole ground is breathing. The vines had crawled across the dirt, twisted into shapes that looked almost deliberate. Some of the pumpkins were small and green, but others were huge, orange orbs glistening with dew. I could have sworn one of them shifted when I stepped closer, like its stem tightened. I told myself it was the wind. There's always wind in Hollow's End. That's when I saw it, the biggest pumpkin near the center of the field. There was a face on it, not carved, not painted, pressed, almost embossed in the skin. The eyes looked sunken, the mouth stretched in a crooked grin. And right above the smile, under the crust of dirt, I saw something I shouldn't have, a scar that matched one I have on my cheek. I touched it. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted proof. The skin was warm, and for a second I thought it pulsed. Once, like a heartbeat. That's when the whisper started. Soft, low, impossible to place. It wasn't coming from around me. It was coming from underneath. I froze. Then I heard my name. I don't even remember running back to the car. My hands were shaking too hard to fit the key into the ignition. I looked up at the field one last time before driving off, and that's when I noticed them. More pumpkins, hundreds maybe, stretching further than they should. The faces were all different, but they were all watching me. Now listen, I know how this sounds. You're thinking I imagined it, that it's guilt or trauma or whatever they called it in those interviews back then. But I wasn't there that night. I didn't see what happened. I left town the day before. Everyone knows that. Still, sometimes I wonder if maybe I didn't leave soon enough. The night of the massacre, they said the field caught fire. They said the smoke was black and thick, and when it cleared, the pumpkins were gone. All that was left were the tools. Knives, lanterns, beer cans, and 5 pairs of shoes lined neatly by the fence. I used to dream about those shoes, how they looked so calm, like the people had just stepped out of them and vanished. You have to understand, it wasn't murder. It couldn't have been, because no one found any bodies. Not one. So how do you massacre people who aren't there anymore? Maybe that's why I came back, to prove it to myself. Or maybe I just missed hearing my name whispered by something that isn't supposed to talk. That night, I slept in my car by the old church. I thought about calling Mara. She used to live across from me. She was there that Halloween. She's the only one who might still tell me the truth. But the phone number I found online doesn't work anymore. The voicemail that picked up wasn't her voice. It sounded older, tired, like something pretending to be her. It said, "You shouldn't have come back." I didn't leave a message. When morning came, the sky was grey and the fog thick enough to taste. I drove past the diner, past the post office, and stopped by the sheriff's station, or what's left of it. The glass was boarded up, the sign faded, but someone had painted a message in red across the wood. The field remembers. I laughed. I don't know why. Maybe because I finally understood something I never did before. Everyone in Hollow's End acts like they've moved on, but they haven't. The field still owns this town, and if I'm being honest, I think it still owns me too. Before I left the station, I caught my reflection in one of the broken windows. For a moment, I could have sworn the crack running through the glass lined up perfectly with that same scar on my cheek, the one the pumpkin had. And then, right behind me, in the reflection, a flash of orange. But when I turned around, the street was empty. Anyway, that's why I'm making this recording. You deserve to know what really happened, what's still happening, before Halloween night comes again. And if you hear your name whispered from the cornfield, don't answer, because that's how it starts. It wasn't the reflection that scared me. It was how long it kept moving after I stopped. I told myself it was a trick of the glass, that my mind was playing catch-up after seeing that flash of orange. But the longer I stared, the more I realized the reflection wasn't following me anymore. It was waiting, watching from the other side. I left the sheriff's station as fast as I could. The fog was thicker now, pressing against the windows, making everything look smudged and unreal. My breath kept fogging the windshield even when I wasn't breathing that hard. Hollow's End does that. It smothers you with its silence until you start hearing things that might not be there. I don't remember deciding to drive to Mara's house. My hands just turned the wheel, like they already knew the way. Maybe some part of me always knew I'd have to see her again before any of this could end. Mara and I grew up on the same road, just 2 houses apart. She was the brave one. The kind who dare you to run through the cornfield at midnight or touch the scarecrow by the fence. She laughed like she wasn't afraid of anything. But after that Halloween, she stopped laughing altogether. When she answered the door, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was streaked grey, her face drawn tight, like she'd been holding her breath for years. "God," she said when she saw me. "You actually came back." "I needed to see it," I told her. "You shouldn't have," she said. "We buried it." I wanted to ask what it was, the night, the field, the memories, but her tone told me not to. So instead, I asked if she remembered what the pumpkins looked like before everything went wrong. She didn't answer right away, just turned her head toward the living room window, the curtains drawn tight. "You really shouldn't talk about them," she said. "You know what happens when you do." "What happens?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she whispered, "They start listening." Her words chilled me more than the fog outside. But the worst part, she meant it. I noticed then that she'd covered every mirror in the house with sheets of newspaper. Even the picture frames had tape across the glass. "You're still scared," I said quietly. Mara laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "Scared? No, I'm careful. There's a difference." She poured coffee, though her hands were shaking. "Crane's still around," she said. "He checks in sometimes, keeps his head down, pretends we're all fine." "Deputy Crane?" I said. "He was the one who found the shoes," she interrupted, "and the first to lie about what else he saw." That last part hung in the air like smoke. I didn't ask right away. Sometimes silence pulls out more truth than questions do. "Eventually," she said, "he told them the field was empty. But I saw him that night. He came running out, screaming. His hands were covered in..." She stopped. Her eyes darted toward the window again. "In what, Mara?" She didn't answer. She just whispered, You really don't remember, do you? I wanted to say yes, but I didn't. Because lately, I'm not sure what my memories are anymore. What I saw, what I dreamed, what I did. She leaned closer. We swore never to talk about it. Not to each other, not to anyone. You made us swear, remember? I frowned. No, I didn't. You did, she said firmly. You said if we kept quiet, they'd leave us alone. I didn't know what to say, so I laughed instead, even though it came out hollow. Well, that didn't work, did it? Her face went pale. You shouldn't joke about it. They hate when you joke. I left soon after. I told her I'd check in with Crane, see if he still remembered anything useful. But truthfully, I just needed to get out of that house. The air felt too heavy, like something else was breathing in sync with us. Deputy Crane's office was at the edge of town, next to the abandoned fire station. His cruiser was parked outside, rust creeping up the doors. When I stepped in, he looked up from his desk with a mix of suspicion and exhaustion. "I'll be damned," he said. "Thought you'd never come back." He looked older, slower. His uniform hung loose on him, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, hadn't changed. "I talked to Mara," I said. "She says you remember more than you told people." He gave a bitter laugh. "Mara still talking nonsense? I told her to drop it years ago." "You lied," I said quietly. He stiffened. "About what?" "The field. You said it was empty." He didn't answer, just stared past me toward the window. For a second, I thought I saw something orange reflected in his pupils. Finally, he said, "Empty's better than what it really was." "What was it then?" He leaned forward, his voice low. "You think it was pumpkins, don't you? That's what you keep telling yourself. But those weren't pumpkins, son. They were shells. Shells," I repeated. "For what was underneath?" He stood up then, walked to the blinds and shut them. The room dimmed. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. "We kept our part of the deal. Now they'll want the rest." I felt something twist in my chest. Fear, confusion, or maybe memory trying to claw its way out. "Who are they?" I asked, but Crane didn't answer. He was staring at my cheek, at the scar. "God," he muttered. "It's starting again." I opened my mouth to ask what he meant, but he suddenly grabbed my wrist, his grip like iron. "If you hear your name out there," he said, "don't turn around, no matter how close it sounds." Then he shoved me toward the door. "Go before it's too late." Outside, the fog had thickened into something almost solid. My car was coated in dew, the windows opaque. For a moment, I thought I saw handprints on the glass, small ones, pressed from the inside. When I wiped them away, my reflection looked wrong. It smiled back, and behind me, through the haze, I swear I heard Mara's voice whisper, "You shouldn't have come back." I found the tape in my own mailbox. No return address, no note. Just a label that said, "Play me before Halloween." I almost laughed when I saw it. VHS. Who even uses those anymore? But something in me knew what it was before I touched it. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it, and yet I couldn't stop smiling. Like part of me had been waiting for it all along. After talking to Crane and hearing Mara's voice in the fog, I didn't sleep. I spent the night staring at the ceiling of that rented motel room. The kind of place where every stain has a story you don't want to know. I kept replaying his words. They were shells. Shells for what? At 3:11 a.m., I heard the clatter of something hitting the door. I opened it, expecting maybe a prank, but the hallway was empty. Just that tape on the carpet, black plastic slick with condensation. I should have thrown it away. God, I should have. But instead, I dug out my old player from the trunk of my car. Yeah, I still had one. Part of me had never stopped expecting this. The screen flickered to life, static hissing like distant whispers. The first frame was black, then a faint orange glow. A camera panned slowly across a field of pumpkins, their faces flickering with candlelight. The footage was grainy, jittery, and silent, except for breathing. My breathing. I recognized it instantly. I don't know how. At first I told myself it was impossible, that someone had spliced old footage, maybe newsreels or some twisted copycat prank. But then the camera shifted, catching a reflection in the lens. A figure holding the camera. Me. I paused the tape, but the sound kept going. The breathing didn't stop. The room felt colder. My reflection in the dark TV glass looked off, its mouth still moving even after I stopped. I turned the player off, but the tape kept spinning. I yanked the plug out of the wall. Still, faintly, from the TV's speaker. Come back to the field. That voice wasn't mine. Not anymore. I don't remember deciding to leave. But the next thing I knew, I was driving again. The fog parting like it wanted me there. Hollow's End at night feels hollow for real. Every streetlight buzzes. Every shadow leans just a little too long. I thought about Mara, about Crane, about how they both told me not to talk, not to look back. But how do you forget something that keeps calling your name? I drove until the road turned to dirt, until the radio started to whisper instead of play. I swear it said my name once, drawn out, distorted. That's when I saw the glow ahead. Lanterns. The pumpkin patch looked exactly like it did that night 12 years ago. Maybe worse. Some of the vines were taller than me now, curling around fence posts like they were strangling them. The air was sweet and sour, like fruit left too long in the sun. I told myself I'd just look, just see if it was real. But when I stepped onto the soil, I realized something had changed. The pumpkins were wrong. They weren't carved, not like before. Their faces weren't cut into them. They were pushed out, like something was trying to crawl from the inside. Some of them twitched when I got close. The smell hit me next. Not rot, not exactly. It was like meat cooking on a cold grill. I should have left. But then, from somewhere near the center of the field, a faint light flickered, and I knew it was the tape. A small, portable TV sat in the mud, powered somehow, static pulsing across the screen. The same footage was playing again. Only now, there were voices, laughter, screaming, the sound of someone whispering my name over and over. I took one step closer. The image on the screen shifted. Now it showed 5 people sitting around the pumpkins, carving and laughing. I recognized every single one of them. Mara, Crane, and me. I froze because I wasn't holding the camera anymore. I was sitting there smiling, my hands slick with something dark. I could hear myself on the tape saying, "They're not pumpkins, they're eggs." And then the screen went black. Behind me, something in the dirt cracked, like a shell splitting open. I turned around, slow, praying I was wrong. But one of the pumpkins, the biggest one, had split at the top. Something wet and glistening pulsed beneath the skin, pushing outward like lungs filling with air. A sound came from inside, not quite a scream, not quite a voice. It said, "You left us here." I stumbled back, my heart slamming in my throat. "No," I said out loud. "I wasn't there. I didn't—" The field answered. All at once, the pumpkins started whispering. Not words, not at first, just a chorus of wet murmurs. Then clearer, in overlapping voices. "You promised we'd stay quiet." That's when I realized they weren't talking to me. They were talking to the person holding the camera, and the camera was still on. I don't know how long I stood there. The ground was moving under my feet. vines sliding around my ankles like they were feeling for a pulse. The air buzzed with something low and steady. Not sound, but vibration, like a heartbeat deep in the dirt. Then the TV flickered again. My face appeared one last time, grinning at the lens. "We're almost done," it said in my voice. "We just need one more." The screen went dark. The field went silent. And then, from behind me, a flashlight beam cut through the fog. "Freeze!" It was Crane. He stepped into the light of the dying TV, his gun trembling in his hands. "Jesus Christ," he said. "You came back. What's happening?" I asked. His eyes darted around, wild. "You tell me," he said. "You filmed it. You made them do it." "I didn't. Don't lie," he shouted. "We saw the tape. We all saw it." He lowered the gun slowly, his face breaking into something between horror and pity. "You really don't remember, do you?" The ground beneath me pulsed again, harder this time. The vines around my legs tightened. Crane's eyes widened. "Run," he whispered. But before I could move, something rose behind him, orange and glistening, a shape too large to be real, carved with hundreds of faces. He turned just as it moved. The flashlight hit the dirt, rolling toward me, and for one blinding instant, I saw his reflection in its beam, and it was smiling, too. Crane didn't scream when it took him. He laughed, like he finally understood the joke. I remember the sound, wet, heavy, like roots tearing through meat, and then nothing but silence. No birds, no wind, just me, the field, and the smell of copper in the air. I don't know how long I stood there. The fog had turned thick enough to drink, coating everything with dew that tasted faintly of ash. Crane's flashlight lay at my feet, its beam flickering across the dirt, across the pieces of what used to be him. The vines pulsed once, then went still. The huge shape that rose behind him had already sunk back into the soil, leaving a trail of dark sludge behind. And in that sludge, something moved, small, twitching. It was a pumpkin seed, only it wasn't. It was darker, oily, alive. I backed away until my legs hit the fence. The boards were soft and damp, like the wood had been rotting for years, even though the town had rebuilt it after the fire. Every breath I took sounded too loud. My heartbeat didn't feel like mine anymore. It was slower, heavier, sinking with that low hum coming from underground. The field wasn't quiet, it was breathing. I stumbled toward the road, clutching Crane's flashlight. His voice echoed in my head. "You filmed it. You made them do it. Was that true?" I tried to remember that night, the real night. I remember the laughter, the smell of beer, Mara daring me to carve something no one would ever forget. I remember her scream, then the sound of soil splitting. After that, nothing. I reached the car, hands shaking so bad the keys slipped from my grip. The engine coughed, refused, then finally turned over. I didn't look in the mirrors. I couldn't. The last time I looked, the reflection had kept moving. The drive back into town should have taken 10 minutes. It took hours. The streets were empty, no lights in the windows, no cars parked along Main. The whole place looked abandoned, like the town itself had stopped pretending to exist. When I passed the church, I saw movement inside, candles flickering in the nave. I pulled over. The door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, the pews were gone, the walls smeared with something that looked like rust. In the center, a figure stood facing the altar. "Mara?" She turned, slow. Her eyes were bloodshot, her skin pale and stretched tight like wax. "I told you not to come back," she whispered. "What happened to Crane?" Her lips twitched. "He finally joined them." "Them?" "The ones under the field," she said. "The ones we planted." I shook my head. No, we didn't." "Yes, we did," she said softly. "You brought the seeds, remember? You said it would make them come back. I don't remember that." That's because you buried the memory, just like you buried them. The candles behind her flared, and for a moment, her shadow stretched across the wall, long and jagged, like vines reaching upward. Mara, I said, what are you talking about? She took a step closer. We wanted to talk to them again, the ones we lost. You said the field could hear us, that if we planted the pumpkins with their names carved inside, the soil would remember. I shook my head again. That's not real. She smiled, and for the first time, I saw how wrong her mouth looked. The corners too deep, the skin cracked. You don't get it, she whispered. It worked. Something rustled behind the altar, soft, rhythmic. A low thump, then another. I lifted Crane's flashlight and pointed it. The floor was moving, bulging. The boards split open and something orange and slick pushed through, a shape swelling like a lung. A dozen others followed, cracking through the wood, the air filled with the smell of rot and sap. Mara didn't move. She just whispered, "They're hungry." The pumpkins tore free from the floor, wet vines flailing, the carved faces shifting. Some looked like us. One looked exactly like me. I stumbled back. No, this isn't real. But then the one with my face opened its mouth. Blood, not sap, dripped from its grin. You promised, it said, my voice, my tone. The rest echoed. You promised, you promised. The light flickered. Mara was crying, her voice breaking. We just wanted them back. Something behind her rose taller than both of us. A massive pulsating root branching into the ceiling. Faces pressed against it from inside the skin, screaming without sound. I ran. The front doors didn't open. They melted. The wood sagged like wax, sealing shut. The air thickened, hot and wet. My flashlight dimmed. All around me, vines crawled up the walls, over the windows, over me. I clawed at them, but they were slick with blood. Not mine, theirs. And then, a voice close to my ear, soft, familiar, Mara. They said they'd stop if we gave them one more, she whispered. I turned, but it wasn't Mara anymore. Her skin was splitting at the seams, orange light spilling from the cracks. The shape beneath her face shifted, like something moving under fabric. She smiled. It's your turn. The vines lunged. I hit the floor hard, the flashlight spinning away. Everything went dark, except for the glow. The field's orange light filled the church through the broken windows, pulsing in time with my heart. Then I heard it. The sound of tape whirring. I looked up. A camcorder sat on the altar, red light blinking. Recording. And for the first time, I remembered everything. It was me. I was the one who filmed it. I brought the seeds, the tools, the candles. I told them the field could give back what it took, that the pumpkins were the vessels, the wombs of the dead. They believed me, and when the ground started to move, when the faces began to grow from the vines, I didn't stop them. I kept filming, because I wanted to see what would happen if something else came back instead. And now, watching the lens blink red, I understood. It never stopped filming. Not then, not ever. It just waited for me to finish the story. The vines tightened around my wrists. My reflection in the camera lens smiled. The pumpkins outside began to bleed. Thick, dark streams running down their cracked faces, seeping into the earth. The hum beneath the ground became a roar. Through the noise, I heard one last whisper, hundreds of voices overlapping, all in mine. You promised you'd stay. The camera's light blinked once, then went out. And for a moment, before the dark swallowed everything, I saw the field again, endless, alive, and full of faces, all of them smiling. All of them mine. Story number 5. You ever notice how silence can sound wrong? When I first moved into this neighborhood in Maine, the silence was the first thing I loved about it. Now I know it isn't silence at all. It's listening, and if I tell you what I mean by that, you won't sleep tonight. But I have to tell someone before it happens again. I didn't notice the rules right away. Maybe that's why it started so early. I'd been in the house less than 24 hours when things began to feel wrong. Not in a dramatic horror movie way, more like when you walk into a room and forget why you're there. But the room doesn't seem to want you to remember. The place was perfect, at least on paper. A small one-story cottage on the edge of a quiet coastal town in Maine. The kind of neighborhood where the fog comes in thick and the ocean sounds like breathing at night. The realtor said everyone kept to themselves. I like that. After everything that happened back home, keeping to myself sounded ideal. I didn't move for peace. I moved because I couldn't stand the noise anymore. That's what I tell people anyway. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked the bare essentials, coffee maker, a few dishes, my laptop. The house smelled like salt and pine. It felt old but clean, like someone had wiped away decades of dust before I got there. I even remember thinking, this place feels too good to be true. Then, around midnight, I went to the kitchen for water and saw it. A piece of paper, taped crookedly to the fridge door. It wasn't mine, printed in faded ink, centered like a manifesto. House rules: do not open the back door after sunset. Do not look out the window after midnight. If you hear your name, do not respond. Keep the hallway mirror covered at all times. Never leave food out overnight. Never, under any circumstances, remove this list. At first, I laughed. Small towns have their quirks, right? Maybe it was a local prank or some weird homeowner tradition. I assumed the previous tenant was eccentric and forgot to take it down. But something about the fourth rule, about the mirror, made my stomach tighten. There was a mirror in the hallway, a tall one, antique-looking, framed in dark wood. Someone had draped a white sheet over it, neatly pinned at the top like a veil. I told myself it was superstition. Still, I left it covered. When I called the realtor the next morning, she didn't pick up. I texted instead, "Hey, found some kind of rule list on the fridge. Should I toss it?" No reply. By noon, I'd stopped thinking about it. I was unpacking boxes in the living room, playing a podcast to fill the silence. But the sound kept cutting out, like static, like someone whispering beneath the host's voice. I checked the Wi-Fi, solid connection, paused, replayed. Same thing. I turned off the podcast and sat there, listening. Nothing, just the sea wind. That night, I told myself I was going to sleep early. I hadn't slept properly in weeks, not since before the move. But I couldn't rest. The silence pressed against me. Heavy. The walls felt too close. And just before midnight, I thought I heard something. A soft tap, like knuckles against glass. It came from the window beside my bed. I froze, heart thudding, waiting for another sound. Nothing. Just the ocean breathing in and out. I checked my phone. 12:03 a.m. One of the rules flashed in my mind. Do not look out the window after midnight. I laughed under my breath. I wasn't superstitious. I was rational. I needed to prove to myself there was nothing there. So I looked. There was only fog. Thick, rolling fog pressed against the glass, swallowing the streetlight. But as I leaned closer, the condensation on the pane started to fade, and a shape appeared, a smudge. No, a reflection. I blinked. My reflection wasn't moving the same way I was. I stumbled back, hitting the nightstand. The lamp toppled over, and when the bulb flickered out, I swear, I heard something. A voice. It was faint, right behind me, whispering my name. I spun around, but the room was empty. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, lights on, eyes fixed on that hallway mirror I'd sworn not to touch. The sheet over it moved slightly, like a draft had passed through, but the windows were all closed. By morning, I convinced myself it was exhaustion. New house, stress, caffeine, logical explanations. I even recorded a short video for myself, something I do when my mind starts spiraling, just to keep track. Day 2 in the new place, I said on camera, forcing a smile, already losing it. Don't worry, Eli, it's just wind, not ghosts. When I watched the clip later though, I noticed something. Halfway through, there was a faint echo, a whisper, barely audible, saying my name again, right before I laughed. I tried to tell myself it was feedback from the mic. That's what I wanted to believe. But then, while editing, I noticed something else. In the reflection of the fridge door behind me, you can see that sheet in the hallway. And for a split second, it's gone. Just bare glass. And something standing behind me. I don't remember taking the sheet down. I don't remember touching it at all. That night, I taped the list of rules back down flat on the fridge. I didn't want to look at them, but I didn't want to ignore them either. The words felt heavier now, like a warning addressed directly to me. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined everything, that moving here was supposed to be a fresh start, not a relapse. But there's something I haven't told you yet, something I didn't even tell the realtor. This isn't the first time I've heard my name whispered when no one was there. It started months before I came here, after the accident. Long pause. You can hear his breathing change. The tone shifts from confession to fear. Anyway, I think I'm just tired. There's a knock at the door. Probably a neighbor. I'll tell you about her next. You ever meet someone who knows too much about you before you even say your name? That's what she was like, the woman next door. It was the morning after the knocking. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch all night, staring at the hallway mirror. The sheet didn't move again, but I couldn't stop watching it. I told myself I'd get rid of it, burn it maybe, but something about the rules on the fridge stopped me. Keep the hallway mirror covered at all times. I wasn't about to break another one, not after what happened when I looked out the window. So when the knock came again around 9 a.m., bright daylight, not midnight this time, I jumped like it was a gunshot. Through the peephole, I saw her. A small, elderly woman, bundled in a wool coat, even though it was warm out. White hair tucked under a scarf, eyes sharp and restless. She held a plate covered in foil. I opened the door. "Good morning," she said, smiling thinly. "You must be the new tenant." Her voice was warm but cautious, like she was testing me. I nodded, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, Eli. Just moved in yesterday." She looked past me into the house, only for a moment, but it felt intrusive, like she was taking inventory of what I'd done wrong already. "I'm Mrs. Carden," she said. "I live next door. Just thought I'd stop by to welcome you." She lifted the foil. Blueberry muffins. The smell was comforting. Too comforting. "Thanks," I said. "That's really nice of you." Her smile didn't change, but her eyes lingered on something behind me. I turned to follow her gaze. The fridge. The list. Her smile faltered. "You've seen the rules then?" My stomach tightened. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Some kind of neighborhood tradition. Her face went pale and she shook her head. "No, dear. Not a tradition. A warning." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't ever take them down. And whatever happens, don't talk to the man who knocks after dark." I blinked. What? "The man who knocks. He comes sometimes, when there's someone new." She said it like she was describing the mailman. Matter of fact. Not a ghost story. Just a rule. I tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. "You're serious?" Her eyes didn't waver. "You heard him last night, didn't you?" That stopped me cold. I hadn't told anyone about the knocking. "How did you—" She smiled again, but it was forced. "We all hear him eventually." Then she turned to leave. "Follow the rules, Eli. They keep you safe." I watched her walk down the path toward her house. Same neat little cottage, same faded siding, same paper taped to the fridge visible through the kitchen window. Every house had one, every single one. When she disappeared inside, I shut the door and locked it. Twice. I tried to distract myself, cleaning, organizing, checking email, but I couldn't stop replaying her words. "Don't talk to the man who knocks." The phrase looped in my mind until it lost meaning. By dusk, I convinced myself she was just a lonely neighbor looking for attention. Maybe she'd seen me move in and decided to spook the new guy. Every small town has one. Still, I left all the lights on, just in case. That night, I set up my voice recorder again. Habit from the old house. I used to record when the noise got bad. It helps to play things back, to prove what's real. The recording started at 10:04 p.m. The next clear sound was at 12:17 a.m. 3 knocks, then a pause, then 3 more. The knocks were deliberate, steady, not wind, not branches. A man's voice followed. Calm, friendly. "Eli, you forgot something." I woke up on the couch, the recorder light still blinking. The front door was locked. I swear I never got up, but when I checked the entryway, there were muddy footprints, just one pair, leading from the front door to the kitchen. I don't remember walking there. When I replayed the recording, I heard more than I expected. Between the knocks, there was whispering, too low to make out at first. I slowed it down. The voice said, "Let me in. You always let me in before." I shut off the recorder, heart hammering. Mrs. Carden's words rang in my head. "Don't talk to the man who knocks." But that's not what scared me most. What scared me was the way he said before. Because that voice, I'd heard it somewhere else. Not here. Back home. I wish I could say I was brave. I wish I could say I grabbed a bat or called the cops. But instead, I sat in the kitchen staring at the list on the fridge, reading it over and over until the letters blurred. Do not open the back door after sunset. Do not look out the window after midnight. If you hear your name, Do not respond. Keep the hallway mirror covered. Never remove the list. But nowhere did it say what to do when he knew your name. By sunrise, the footprints were gone, completely vanished. I walked next door that morning to confront Mrs. Carden, to ask her what the hell was happening. But when I knocked, no one answered. The curtains were drawn, and the yard was empty. I checked the mailbox, stuffed full, like no one had touched it in days, and through the front window I saw her kitchen, the same fridge, the same list, but the paper looked old, yellowed, edges curling with time. Later I checked the county property site. The Cardens' house had been listed as vacant for 3 years. I stopped recording for a while after that. I didn't want to hear what else might be on those tapes, but the knocking didn't stop. Sometimes it came from the front door, sometimes from the walls, once even from inside the kitchen itself. Always the same rhythm, always that same calm, patient voice. After that, I started noticing cameras in the neighborhood, small black domes mounted inside people's windows, all pointed inward, not out. Every house had them, every single one. When I asked the realtor about it in an email, she finally responded, "The security system is part of the Eli. You forgot something. The last time I heard it, I swear it was coming from the mirror in the hallway. I haven't checked. I won't, at least, not yet. I started leaving the lights on at night, not because I was scared, but because I wanted it to see me first. That's what I told myself anyway. I didn't leave the house for 2 days after that last knock. The air inside felt thick, like the house was holding its breath, waiting for me to make another mistake. Mrs. Carden's house stayed dark. I checked her window every morning, but nothing changed. Curtains drawn, mail piling up, the yellowed list still taped to the fridge. I kept trying to convince myself she was real, that I hadn't imagined her. But every time I played the recording of our conversation, the part where she said, "Don't talk to the man who knocks," was gone. Just static. It didn't cut out. It erased itself. That's when I started documenting everything on video. If something happened again, I wanted proof. Proof for the police, for myself. Hell, maybe for whoever watches this after I'm gone. The first clip was me walking through the house, narrating like some shaky DIY vlogger. My voice sounded strained, too loud in the silence. "Day 4, I said, camera pointed at the fridge. "I haven't heard him since the last knock," trying to stay calm. "Maybe it's over." I turned the lens toward the hallway mirror. The sheet still hung over it, fluttering slightly even though no air moved. I swear I saw it breathe. When I reviewed the footage later, something was off. Between frames for less than a second, the camera caught an image. Me, standing in front of the mirror. Except my reflection wasn't covered. It was looking straight back at me, mouth open, like it was mid-screen. I didn't remember filming that .e property. "Do not tamper with it," that's all she said. No greeting, no signature, just that single warning. I tried to unplug mine, but every time I did, the lights flickered and the hum in the walls grew louder. Like the house was reacting, watching. That night, the whispering came back. Soft at first, like a radio tuned just off station. Then clearer, my name, over and over. "Eli, Eli, you left the door open again." I ran to the entryway, door locked, deadbolt secure, but my hand was shaking on the knob. And when I touched it, it was warm, like someone had just been holding it from the other side. I backed away slowly, filming with one hand, the phone light cutting through the dark. That's when the lights in the kitchen blinked out, one by one. There was a sound, wet, dragging, coming from the hallway. I pointed the camera toward the mirror. The sheet was gone. I don't remember what happened after that. The next thing I remember is waking up on the kitchen floor, phone still recording. The timestamp said 3:12 a.m. When I watched the footage, most of it was black screen, but there were voices, 2 of them, mine, and another, deeper one. I couldn't make out the words at first. It sounded like I was arguing, crying. Then I heard it clearly. Me. I said I was sorry. Voice. You always say that. It was him. My brother. I froze. I hadn't spoken that name aloud since the fire. I shut the phone off and just sat there in the dark, shaking. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, but the soot marks on my hands told me otherwise. You see, before I moved here, before all of this, I was responsible for something terrible. My brother Aaron and I were working late one night. The space heater in the garage shorted out. I told him I'd unplugged it. I hadn't. He never made it out. The police called it an accident. My mother never did. That's why I came here, to start over, to be somewhere quiet, somewhere without reminders. But I think the quiet found me. The next few days blurred together. I barely ate, barely slept. The cameras in the house began moving on their own. Subtle shifts, following me from room to room. I caught one turning toward the mirror, lingering there like it was waiting. I covered it with tape. The next morning, the tape was gone. I started talking to the camera during the day, like it was a therapist. You want to see, don't you? You've been watching this whole time. Sometimes I'd swear I could hear breathing on the playback, slow, human. Then last night, something new happened. I caught motion on the footage, right where the hallway meets the kitchen. A figure, half seen. Shoulder, hand, the suggestion of a face. When I paused the frame, I saw enough. It was Aaron. Same flannel shirt. Same burn mark along the jawline, but his eyes were wrong. Solid black, like ink. I wanted to delete the video, but I couldn't. My hands wouldn't move. I think part of me wanted to see what he'd do next. Around midnight, the whispering started again. Louder this time, like a crowd in another room. They say it watches, the voices murmured. They say it remembers. Then, 3 knocks. I pressed myself against the wall, too scared to breathe. Eli, he said from the other side, you left me in the fire. Now you'll stay here with me. The lights blew out. When they came back on, the sheet was back over the mirror, neatly pinned, like someone had been kind enough to put it back for me. I don't remember sleeping, but I woke up in bed this morning with ash on my pillow and my brother's old lighter on the nightstand, the same one they said was destroyed in the fire. I don't know what's happening anymore. Maybe the neighborhood isn't haunted. Maybe I am. But if the rules are meant to keep something out, what happens when it's already inside? Anyway, I have to go. There's someone knocking again. It's daylight this time. Maybe it's finally over. I know you're watching this because you found the footage. Just don't open the door, no matter what you hear. I don't remember setting up the camera this time. It was just on when I woke up. Red light blinking, lens pointed straight at me. The battery shouldn't have lasted through the night, but it did. I think something wanted it to. It's morning now, or at least I think it is. The light outside looks wrong. Too pale, like it's been filtered through smoke. The house smells like it did that night in the garage. Burnt plastic, wet ash. There's a sound under it all. Not quite humming, not quite breathing. Like the house itself is alive. I haven't left this room since last night. The rules are still taped to the fridge, curling at the corners, but the words are fading. Letters blurring. Ink bleeding down like they're melting. I can barely make them out anymore. Except for the last one. That one's darker now, bold and wet looking. Like it was rewritten while I slept. Never, under any circumstances, open the door. There's pounding outside as I record. This, steady, calm, the same rhythm every time. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. It's him. It's always him. I don't know how long it's been going on. Minutes, hours, time. Feels strange here now. The clocks all stopped sometime after midnight. I keep replaying everything in my head. Mrs. Carden, the rules, the voices, Aaron's reflection. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't even know if I'm real. At some point last night, I thought I heard my brother's voice again, but it was coming from behind the mirror. I swear I could hear him moving in there, like someone pacing on the other side of a wall too thin to be real. He kept whispering one thing. You left the door open, but I didn't. I know I didn't. The doorknob's shaking now. The sound is soft, metallic, patient. Whoever or whatever is on the other side doesn't need to break in. It's waiting for me to invite it. That's the thing about the rules. They're not protection. They're permission. And I've broken almost all of them. When I looked out the window that first night, when I spoke to the voice, when I uncovered the mirror, every rule was a test. Every failure an invitation. Maybe that's why the others left. Maybe that's why every house here is empty. I think Mrs. Carden was never outside the house next door. She was part of it. Or maybe she was what happens to people who break all the rules and stay too long. My reflection looks different now. I've tried not to look, but it's everywhere. In the black screen of the TV, the microwave door, the camera lens. It smiles when I don't. Earlier, I caught it mouthing something. I muted the mic and lip-read the words. Let him in. I thought about it. I really did. Because if it is Aaron out there, if somehow, impossibly, my brother came back, then maybe this is the only way to fix it. But then I saw something that stopped me cold. When the knocking started again, I checked the peephole. Just for a second. I know I shouldn't have. But curiosity isn't something you can turn off when your mind's falling apart. What I saw wasn't Aaron. It looked like him. Yes, same shirt, same burned jawline. But the smile was wrong. Too wide, too patient. And the eyes, they were hollow, like someone had scooped them out and filled them with smoke. And when he spoke, his mouth didn't move. The sound came from everywhere at once. Walls, floor, air. You brought me here, Eli. You never left me behind. I stepped back, covering my ears. But even when I did, the voice stayed inside my head. Open the door, and it ends. Maybe that's true. Maybe if I open it, the noise stops. The guilt stops. The waiting stops. I picked up the camera and turned it toward myself. My hands were trembling. If anyone finds this, I whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I just wanted a quiet place. Somewhere no one would know me. Somewhere I could forget. The knocks came again, louder this time. The whole house shook. The list of rules peeled off the fridge and fluttered to the floor. I swear I saw words forming underneath it, scratched into the metal. 4 new ones carved deep. He's already inside. I looked around. Every light in the house flickered, the air bending like heat on asphalt. The hum in the walls rose to a shriek. I turned toward the hallway, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw the sheet over the mirror ripple like someone was pushing from the other side, a hand pressed out against the fabric, charred, blackened, fingertips leaving smears of ash. Eli. I ran. Not out the door. No, I wasn't that stupid. I ran into the kitchen, grabbed the camera, and hit record again. The footage you're watching right now. I wanted people to know what happened. To know the rules aren't about superstition. They're about containment. I think this neighborhood was built on top of something, or for something. And the rules, they keep it here, with us. But when people like me break them, when guilt cracks the barrier, it finds a way through. I don't think Aaron's ghost is outside. I think he's what's left of the thing that burned me from the inside out that night. The knock stopped just now. Complete silence. That's worse, it's waiting for me to check. I can't keep this up much longer. The air's too hot to breathe. The lights keep flickering, and the smell of smoke is stronger. It's like the fire's starting again, right here in the walls. If you ever move here, if you ever see a house with that same list on the fridge, don't try to understand it. Don't break the rules. Don't question the silence. And whatever happens, don't answer the knock. Story number 3. If you ever stop at a motel off Route 66 and the manager tells you not to ask about room 9, listen to him. I didn't. I was that manager. And I don't even know if I'm alive anymore. I didn't believe her at first. And unless I imagined that night, but the blood was still there in the morning. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to walk into a place and feel it staring back at me. But the moment I stepped onto that cracked asphalt off Route 66, I knew something wasn't right. The sun was bleeding into the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. I drove past the peeling motel sign, Halpin's Rest, and the letters flickered like a dying neon heartbeat. The air smelled of gasoline and dust, the kind that gets into your lungs and never leaves. I had a lot of questions for Mr. Halpin, but he'd vanished without a trace, leaving me to inherit a place that everyone in town whispered about, but nobody visited. The front doors creaked when I pushed them open, and I half expected them to groan like the bones of the previous occupants. Inside, it smelled like old carpets, cheap air freshener, and something metallic. Something I didn't notice at first, because I wanted to believe it was just rust or a forgotten cleaning spill. That's when I saw it. Behind the front desk, scrawled across the faded yellow wall, were a series of words in a dark, almost black-red ink. I laughed at first. Some prankster, I told myself. Rust, markers. Ha, probably Mr. Halpin's idea of a welcome joke. But the closer I got, the more the letters seemed to pulse, as if they were alive. Rules. Written in a colour that wasn't quite paint, not quite ink. Never rent room 9. If the phone rings after midnight, don't answer. Always replace the flowers in the lobby before dawn. I admit, I smirked. It was absurd. Who even makes rules like this? I ran my finger over the first line and it smeared slightly. Sticky. That's when a chill crept up my spine. The kind that wraps around your rib cage and refuses to let go. Rust, I muttered, louder than I felt. Rust doesn't smell like iron. Doesn't leave a taste in your mouth like copper. I unpacked my few bags in the small office behind the desk, telling the camera, yes, I filmed these confessional videos even then, that I was probably overreacting, that maybe the previous manager was just quirky, eccentric, or missing. I laughed. Nervous laugh, not genuine. The first guest arrived just as the sun dipped completely behind the horizon. He was tall, unremarkable in appearance, wearing a leather jacket and an expression that didn't quite meet his eyes. He asked about room 9. I froze. I told him it was unavailable. He frowned, persistent, and I hesitated longer than I should have. I lied to him. Sorry, that room's under maintenance, I said, my voice cracking slightly. He nodded slowly, like he knew something I didn't. He didn't push further, but there was a weight in the air, a kind of silent accusation that made my stomach turn. I checked the camera feeds after he went upstairs. Nothing unusual, just the humming fluorescent lights and the long, empty hallway that seemed longer in the dark. I told myself it was all in my head, that I was imagining the stories I'd heard in town, the disappearances, the whispers, the rules no one followed. I wanted to believe that. By 3 a.m., I heard the soft knock on the office door. My heart jumped. The phone rang. shrill, shrieking against the quiet motel. My hand hovered over it, remembering the rules scrawled in red behind the desk. I told the audience I didn't answer. I didn't. I couldn't. Morning came too quickly, soft light spilling through dusty blinds. I went upstairs to check on room 9. The door was closed. I knocked. Silence. Slowly I turned the knob. The room was empty, nothing but the faint smell of iron, sharp and heavy, and on the bathroom mirror, written in a smear of red that hadn't been there the night before, were 3 words: "You broke the rules." I stumbled back, the camera shaking in my hands. I tell the audience I didn't see it before cleaning. I want to believe that, but there's a pause I can't skip over when I record. The pause where my eyes drift back to the mirror, the writing, the pulsing red that seems alive. I remember the metallic taste in my mouth, the way my chest tightened, my knees weak as I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I imagined it after a long night. I can't remember anymore. Or maybe I'm lying to you, to myself. By the time the sun fully rose, the lobby looked normal. Dust motes danced in the golden light. The desk was neat. The flowers, freshly replaced, as if they'd always been there. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that the motel had watched me all night. Patient and waiting, recording every decision, every hesitation. I sit here now, filming this first confession, my hands trembling, trying to convince myself that tomorrow I'll manage it better, that the rules are just words, that room 9 is just a room, and that the blood, if it was blood, isn't a message, it's a warning to me. And I know, deep down, that when the next guest asks about room 9, I won't be able to stop myself from saying yes, because curiosity always wins. I thought I was done with the rules. I thought room 9 was a one-time mistake, but then she arrived, Clara. And the moment I saw her, I knew she didn't belong, or maybe I never did. It was a rainy night, the kind where the asphalt glistened and reflected the flickering neon sign in jagged, trembling lines. The storm outside made the motel seem alive, like it was breathing under the weight of thunder. I had finished logging the day's visitors, convincing myself that the previous guest in room 9 was just a fluke, an anomaly. Then the door creaked open. She stepped in quietly, as though she'd walked into the motel every night for years. Pale, almost ethereal, her dark hair plastered to her face from the rain. Her eyes scanned the lobby with an unnerving calm, and she stopped directly in front of me. "Do you still replace the flowers?" she asked, her voice soft, almost melodic. I blinked, hesitated. "I don't know you," I told myself. "You aren't real. You're a figment, a trick of exhaustion." Yet the camera captured every tremor in my hands. I forced a laugh. Yeah, of course," I said, the lie tasting bitter. She smiled faintly, like she knew more than she should. And then she did something that made my stomach drop. She finished my sentence. "You put them in the vase before dawn. Always." I froze, staring at her, heart pounding like a jackhammer. My narration falters here every time I watch the footage. I insist I'd never met her before, that I'm imagining it, but deep down, memories start to bleed through, unbidden and fragmented. I see a silhouette in the rain, months ago, whispering behind the glass door of room 9. That same soft voice, impossibly familiar. Did she follow me here? Or had I been hearing it all along, trapped in that room, haunted by my own guilt? I can't remember clearly, and I don't think I want to. We sat in the small office behind the desk with mugs of steaming coffee, the kind that burns your fingers if you're not careful. She didn't ask for a room number, didn't ask for an ID, didn't even glance at the registration book. She just sipped her coffee, observing me. "You think you're the manager," she said finally. "But this place decides who stays." Her words hit like ice in my chest. I laughed, nervously, the kind of laugh that makes you sound crazy even to yourself. "That's a little dramatic, don't you think?" I asked. But the tremor in my voice betrayed me. As if on cue, the phone shrieked, cutting through the quiet. Midnight. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not with her sitting there, staring at me with that impossible calm, as if she'd been waiting for that exact moment. The camera captured my shaking hand hovering over the receiver, the sweat on my brow, and the mounting panic I refused to admit out loud. The storm outside intensified. Lightning cracked against the motel's rusted roof, the sound echoing like something metal being torn apart. Clara didn't flinch. I wanted to ask her if she was real, if she had always been there, but my tongue felt heavy, paralyzed. Morning came, sluggish and grey, the storm fading into drizzle. I forced myself to walk into the lobby. My eyes went first to the flowers I had replaced the night before. They were blackened, curling in on themselves like something had poisoned them while I slept. And then I saw it. On the wall behind the front desk, where the old rules had been written, fresh red seeped over the faded letters. New words crawled through the old ones, twisting, rearranging themselves. 1. Never speak of her. 2. Follow the rules, even if you forget. I swear to the camera, I cleaned it immediately. I scrubbed, wiped, and left nothing but a faint smear. Yet I never touched it. Not really. The writing, the smell of iron, the way the red seemed to pulse under the paint. It wasn't meant to be cleaned. I tell the audience I don't know what to make of her, that she vanished before I could even ask for a name. But then, the footage shows her reflection in the window, smiling faintly, just for a moment. I look back at the monitor, my hands trembling. Did she leave, or had she always been behind me? Every time I speak to the camera, I try to frame it as coincidence, as if she were merely a guest, a visitor, a trick of exhaustion and stress. But the truth is, I feel her even now, watching me, waiting. And deep in the pit of my chest, I know that room 9 isn't finished. I try to end this segment with a joke, something light-hearted to break the tension. But the words die in my throat. I'm not laughing. Not really. The motel seems alive, almost sentient, whispering through the wind that rattles the broken windows. The rules aren't just words. They're promises. Promises that I can't break without consequences. And Clara is part of them. Or maybe she is the rules. I don't know anymore. I look at the camera, voice low, almost pleading. If you're driving down Route 66 and you see a motel with flickering lights, if you ever meet her, just don't stay in room 9, or answer the phone, or touch the flowers, just leave. I step back from the desk. The storm has cleared, the clouds pulling away into a grey morning sky. But the red, the smell, the pulse of the writing behind the desk, it's still there, waiting. I know the motel isn't done with me, and I know deep down that the next guest will come, and I won't be ready. The appearance of Clara escalates the psychological tension and foreshadows supernatural influence. Ethan's unstable narration and denial deepen. The next chapter introduces outside scrutiny, the highway inspector and police officer, and further blurs reality with unexplained phenomena and fresh blood, setting the stage for Ethan's unraveling. I thought I had seen everything. I thought the rules, the blood, and Clara were the worst this place could throw at me. But that night, when the inspector arrived, I realized the motel doesn't just watch, it reports. It was quiet for a few days after Clara vanished. Quiet enough that I convinced myself she had been a hallucination, a product of too many late nights and too much coffee. I tried to clean the lobby, wipe the smears of red behind the desk, and reassure myself that room 9 was empty. Just a room, nothing more. But then, on a morning damp with fog, 2 cars rolled into the parking lot. A highway inspector and a police officer stepped out. They introduced themselves formally, clipboard in hand, badges glinting. Their presence immediately made my stomach turn. I smiled for the camera, narrating as if nothing was wrong, saying I welcomed their visit. But every step they took toward the office, every glance at the walls, seemed like a silent accusation. The inspector, a tall man with sharp eyes, didn't waste time. "We're here about the missing travelers," he said, voice low, professional. "We've had several reports about this motel," I stammered, fumbling for words. "Reports? Mistakes, miscommunications," I muttered. My narration cracks here in the recording. I tell the audience I was calm, collected, but the footage shows my hand shaking as I handed over the logbook. The officer glanced at room 9, then back at me. "Have you ever rented this room after the previous owner disappeared?" I froze, swallowing hard. I lied. "No, never. I've kept it closed for months." The camera captured the lie perfectly. The way my eyes flickered to the desk, the way my fingers twitched nervously. Because I had rented it. Twice. And the motel knew. As they walked the halls, I insisted everything was normal. But the scratches under the front desk, barely noticeable, seemed to move under their gaze. I told the camera they were just from rats. The audience can see how I avoid looking at the spots, how my voice rises when I insist it's nothing. Then the inspector's voice dropped. "We've received calls. Guests claim the manager isn't always here. Sometimes he appears, sometimes not." I laughed nervously. "I'm always here," I said, probably just misremembering. But the camera shows me looking over my shoulder, the hair on my neck standing up. That night, I replayed the security footage in the office, alone after they left. And that's when it got worse. On the monitor, I was seen standing alone in the lobby, talking, but no one was there. No Clara, no guest, just me, moving my lips, gesturing, as if reciting a conversation I didn't remember. I rewinded, frame by frame, and the blood behind the desk, the rules, had changed. Words twisted, dark red letters forming new instructions. "Don't show them the recordings." 2. Hide the flowers. I swear I never touched it. I never even looked directly. And yet the rules knew. They knew what I was thinking before I thought it. I tried to tell the camera it was paranoia, exhaustion, the stress of the investigation. But every time I speak, I can't hide the truth. I see things out of the corner of my eye. A reflection of Clara in the office window, her pale face barely visible before vanishing. The sound of her soft voice whispering from the empty hall. He knows. I attempted to leave the office. The hallway was longer than I remembered, doors stretching into shadows. The lights flickered like dying hearts, and on the wall near room 9, the smears of red glistened in the dim glow, fresh and pulsating. Words I didn't write appeared. Show them nothing. 4. Follow the rules or join them. I step back, my hands shaking, my breath shallow. I tell the audience I don't understand, that maybe it's a trick of the eyes, a product of stress, but I can feel the motel press against me, pressing questions I don't dare answer. The inspector called me later that evening to clarify details. "Were there any unusual occurrences?" he asked. I laughed again, hiding the tremor. "Unusual? No, sir, just routine maintenance." I didn't tell him about the blood, about Clara, about the words rewriting themselves. I didn't even admit I was afraid, not fully. The night dragged on. The phone rang again, shrill and insistent. I didn't answer. The flowers in the lobby, left untouched since the morning, wilted overnight, black and curling as if scorched. The rules had shifted again, new words emerging from old ones. I record myself saying I cleaned it, wiped it away, but the footage shows I never touched it. By the end of that night, I sat alone in the office, staring at the monitor, my hands trembling. The camera is on, capturing every twitch, every hesitant breath. I tell the audience, that the inspector and the officer are gone, that they didn't see what I saw. But I know better. The motel hides its secrets until it chooses to reveal them. And I can't tell who it wants me to warn, them or me.